allegiance.
Right, I will share the screen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the
and to the
republic
republic
for which it stands, one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. So welcome everyone to the February meeting of the Union Township Planning Commission. As we transition into roll call, I'd like to, we have a new member. So I'd like to welcome Tara Albrecht. Welcome to the Planning Commission. Happy to have you here. Looking forward to working with you. And we're actually at full strength now for the first time in a while. So we have 9 of us and we're all here. So with that, I'll ask for the roll call.
Squatrito.
Here. Oh, and I am in Mount Pleasant, Michigan.
Shingles.
Here, Union Township.
LaBelle.
Here, Union Township, Isabella County.
Lapp.
Here, Union Township, Isabella County.
Fuller.
Here, Union Township, Isabella County.
Darren.
Here, Union Township, Isabella County.
Cody.
Here, Union Township, Isabella County.
Buckley.
Here, Union Township, Isabella County.
And Albrecht.
Here, Isabella County, Union Township, Isabella County.
Perfect. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And I guess I'll also note that according to my reading of the current membership, it looks like Stan Shingles was reappointed to another 3-year term. So congratulations to Stan. And again, looking forward to having you continue to be with us. So we last met on January 20th. So you have the minutes from the January 20th meeting. And are there any corrections to the January 20th? I'm sorry, January 19th is when we met. Actually, yeah, in the agenda, it says 2020, but it was January 19th, 2021 is when we last met. Are there any corrections to those minutes? I didn't see any myself.
I'll make a motion to approve the January 19th, 2021 minutes as
So
submitted.
moved.
So there was a motion by Fuller with a second by Shingles to approve the January 19th, 2021 meeting minutes as prepared. Any further discussion? Okay, so with these kind of less formal sorts of motions, I just ask for a voice and/or sign. So all in favor, either please say aye or give a thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so our minutes are approved. All right, thank you. So the next item is correspondence, board reports / presentations. I'll take them in order that they're listed on the agenda. First update is Board of Trustees, and that would be Commissioner Cody.
So, well, you already know that we reappointed Stan Shingles and appointed Tara for their new planning commission. We also approved the special use permit for the Malley site plan that is in our packet today with the conditions that were recommended by the planning commission. That's about it that goes with the planning commission.
Okay, very good. Are there any questions for Lisa for the in terms of Board of Trustees? And I will say both for our new and for our continuing members, I personally find it helpful in terms of recognizing people if you actually use the raise hand feature. It's particularly helpful if more than one person jumps in at the same time. and then I call on people. But so are there any questions for Commissioner Cody? Seeing none, we'll move on. The next item is update for the ZBA. That would be Ryan Buckley.
Yeah, still no updates from the ZBA, which is, as we know, as planning commissioners, is good news. But I do believe, Rodney, that we have one coming up now. Do we have one scheduled now?
Do have a signed variance application that will be heard
Yes.
at the March meeting.
Yep. So come April, I will give you an update.
Okay. Or even in March, because you'll have met by then.
Oh yeah, that's right. We will. But you're right.
So very good. Any questions for Ryan?
Mhm.
Okay, again, seeing none, we'll move on. Next item is update from Sidewalk and Pathways Committee. That would be Commissioner Darren.
Yeah, I have no update. We have a meeting next week on February 23rd at 6:30. And we'll be discussing the business we talked about at last January 19th meeting, which are still in our notes, so I'll stay fresh in my mind. So hopefully I have an update next month.
Very good. Questions for Mike Darren? Okay. And then the last item, you had in your packet a memo from Rodney about where things stand with regard to our meeting format, this format versus in person. So I'll turn it over to Rodney. I assume everyone read it. It was pretty self-explanatory, but if there's anything you'd like to say in addition, or just whatever you'd like to say about that.
It is pretty straightforward. We don't, nothing needs to be done right now. The main thing was I wanted to give any commissioners that had a concern about returning to in-person meetings at some point down the road, the opportunity to just let me know what those concerns are, so we could try to factor those into planning for that. We are able to continue Zoom meetings really into the spring. The Open Meetings Act says we can do it for any reason through the end of March, but because Isabella County Board of Commissioners adopted an emergency declaration under the state act, 1976 state act, we have the ability to continue Zoom meetings beyond March, and we probably will, at least into, as I said, into the spring to some point. So this was just for your thoughts, and like I said, anyone that has concerns or questions can certainly just contact me directly.
And it's reasonable to assume that the legislature might extend that as well.
It is, yes.
Am I correct that even if we were to consider a return to face-to-face meetings, that if we probably wouldn't be meeting in the township hall again until the social distancing guidelines are really lifted? It sounded like there would possibly be, the possibilities would be other locations.
That is correct. Yeah, our boardroom is small, and because we have to be able to accommodate whatever public decides to turn up for a particular meeting, it's just really not possible to have a planning commission meeting in there, as you said, and maintain social distancing. So we would be looking at a different venue, whether outside in nice weather or over at the Commission on Aging building.
All right. Any questions or comments from commissioners on that topic? Okay. Yeah, Stan. Go ahead and, yeah.
I just had a question. If we do go back to face-to-face meetings and we do find a location, are we concerned about the ability to videotape, audio, those meetings? Is that a consideration as we think about returning face-to-face?
It would be, and we would have conversations with our providers on that before we would pursue it. But yes, we would be looking at trying to figure out how to best handle that aspect of it.
And right now, this option is not costing anything for the township and convenient and effective. at some level. Okay, just something to consider.
Other questions and comments? Okay, very good. Thank you. So the next item is approval of the agenda. So you've got your agenda for tonight. It's got 5 new business items that are either site plan reviews or special use permit, or, you know, those project related things. And then the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update, which was introduced last month, and then the master plan implementation, which is our ongoing thing that doesn't disappear. Are there any corrections or anything else that anyone's aware of that needs to be on tonight's agenda?
Motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I just had a question. The PSBR, what does the P stand for?
That just has to do with the BSA software. We have a planning and zoning module. And so anything dealing with planning and zoning, it puts the P in front of it. So
All right.
PSPR, PSUP, PREZ.
I was just wondering if it was preliminary site plan review back when we reviewed it, and it should be a final site plan review, but apparently that's not the case.
Those first appeared, I believe, last year. It was a while ago. And I remember asking about it too. And that's the clearest answer I've heard so far. That's a good answer. It's at least as understandable.
Acceptable.
But I
So
will
we had-
support Stan's motion.
Okay, so we had a motion by Shingles to approve the agenda as prepared, and the second was by Fuller. Further discussion on that?
Yeah, just a small correction. I think Stan meant to say agenda and he
I
said.
did. I was going to correct that. I said
Yeah.
minutes and I meant to say agenda.
Yep,
Yes.
I knew what you
Thank
meant.
you, sir.
Which is why I think I said agenda, so
You did.
I kind of auto-corrected. Anything else? All right, so again, all in favor of approving the agenda, please either say aye or give a thumbs up.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so motion carries, so we have our agenda.
I had a question, just a brief question regarding the agenda location, and I'm just not recalling why the agenda is approved there. The other items are not agenda items. They are announcements, correct? Reports. Because if we're approving the agenda, and we've had this discussion before, and I'm just not having the recall of why we're approving the agenda after we've started the agenda.
I'm going to defer to our beloved and revered township staff, because I don't have an answer for you either.
If you would like to change the order on your agenda, you certainly can. The order of agenda items is in your bylaws, as I recall. And so we probably would need to update the bylaws to do that, but you can certainly move the agenda, approval of the agenda up to the top of the meeting. There is some value to have it where it is, because if something comes up in the initial conversations, approving the minutes, other things, then you're more likely to be able to simply say, hey, look, now we can add that item in, approving it here. But ultimately, you can have it up at the beginning if you prefer.
Okay. Because I was thinking, are the other items, would those be considered consent agenda items, which is a good way to split it, because a consent agenda is different from agenda. So that would certainly be an option. We've had this discussion before, and I know Tara's new and Jessica's only been on a couple of meetings. So I was just thinking as I was reviewing it, why, and I just didn't recall.
Yeah.
I think it's been this way for a long time. I didn't realize it was in the bylaws though.
Yeah. No, it has been. I mean, it's been like that for as long as I remember. I mean, in reality, the only things we ever move around are the business items anyway. So in that sense, I don't know that it's too out of place.
Well, I guess my next question would be, because the meeting has been formally called to order, that if there were action items, for instance, that it would be appropriate to have action. Like, for instance, if we were having actions, Rodney, on your letter, would that be under the agenda, or would that still be in the correspondence board report presentations?
But typically, action items should not be taking place as part of that correspondence line item, but it could generate an action item that you would add to the agenda.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
if you wanted to have discussion on my letter, you could have simply said, let's add that to new business, and then amend the agenda accordingly.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know if it's addressed in our bylaws, but I know that in a lot of organizations, action items need to be in the agenda to begin with. You can't just kind of start throwing agenda or action items out there that weren't announced in advance.
Well, that was part of my mindset of, we're talking about reports that could lead to action. Rodney's explanation just helped that, because then we would just simply move it to the agenda if so approved. So anyway, it answers all of my questions.
Okay, very good. So I'm trying to remember, have we did approve the agenda though, right? Am I
We
right?
just did,
Okay,
yes.
all right, very good. So the next item, which also is another one that has raised question in my mind over the years, is we moved to public comment, but we've always done it this way, which is that this public comment portion of the meeting is restricted to items that are not on the agenda. We have another public comment later in the meeting that is not so restricted. So at this time, any attendee who would like to address the Planning Commission on any item that's not on tonight's agenda, we'd ask you to activate your raised hand button, make your intentions known, and we'll allow you to speak. And we ask you to give us your name and address for the minutes, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. So public comment is open at 7:19. We have a pretty good audience tonight, but I'm guessing that most of them are here for the agenda items. So, including one who's anonymous. So seeing none, I will go ahead and close the public comment, still at 7:19. And again, we have another public comment towards the end of the meeting for anything. Right. So
Yeah, Chair Squattrito, I kind of second your comments about, I don't quite understand why that's on there, because if someone does have, issues or concerns to discuss with agenda items, they don't have a chance to do so until we've actually already taken action. So could Rodney or Peter elaborate on why someone that does have a concern doesn't have an opportunity to voice those concerns? And I'm kind of in the same position as Commissioner Shingles. I can't quite recall, even though we may have touched on this a year or two ago.
I tell you what I would suggest. This sounds like it's a very good time to take a look at our bylaws, and we can focus on the agenda order of things as part of taking a peek at the bylaws, and just make sure that we have what we want in there. In terms of the order of things, Peter may have a thought on this, but just share an initial thought that you can set this up however you choose. You absolutely can essentially reverse the order of the public comment. So the first one is about items on the agenda, and the second one is about items not on the agenda. We do have public hearings where people would have an opportunity to speak for a specific line item, but many of the things we do are site plan related, where there is not a formal public comment period process. So allowing the first public comment period to give people a chance to comment on site plan items and other things that are on the agenda certainly would be a valid change to make. But my thought would be is that we simply include the bylaws on a future agenda and have a talk about that. Those changes can be easily made.
Okay, no, thanks for that explanation. And if that's something that we could make note of to discuss at a later date. Thank you.
So Jessica.
I just pulled up the bylaws and I don't see, I see the way the agenda is supposed to be organized, but there's no explanation that I can see there of why that first public comment period has that stipulation that it can't be related to anything on the agenda.
Yeah. I'm going to say, it's been that way since I joined the commission, which would be more than 10 years ago now. And I think, and maybe Alex would have a sense as well. I think the feeling was probably, at least in part, that because there are items that we take up that do legally have a required public comment, like the special use, like the rezonings and so on, that that would be built into the public hearings, and that in the other cases, I'm thinking it was probably just to streamline the meetings and to prevent us from getting bogged down in a lot of public comment that isn't legally required on some of the issues, like, for example, site plans and so on. That's not to say that we can't choose to do it a different way, but I think that's probably most likely why it was set up like that. And I don't know if that was in relation to any sort of problem that came up at any point, or if it was just something that someone decided to do. Do you have any clue or memory of that, Alex?
It's been that way for a long time, and we've never really had a problem with it. So I don't think anybody's looked into it, but it would be a good time to bring up the bylaws. And if we feel there's something that could be changed, we should change it.
Yeah. I may just use my authority as chair to appoint an ad hoc bylaw committee. So you can always, if you don't want to be on it, change your filter to a mouse or whatever it was at this point. Cat, I guess it was.
So, Ryan Buckley has his hand raised.
I'm sorry, Ryan.
Oh, you're muted.
I know, sorry. I forgot to bring my mouse out and I'm trying to use my finger. I'd only point out, and I don't want to belabor the point because I know we've been discussing it for a minute. We did have a conversation about this within the past few years, and we did. I think you guys probably remember that we did change the order of the public hearings. So we did the public hearings. We used to do the public hearings and then move into the other agenda items. And now we do the public hearing immediately before the agenda item that it is focused on. I think that the rationale at the time, at least, was that we were keeping the regular public comment free of commenting on specific agenda items, because I think we went through and kind of looked at what required a public meeting and or a public comment, and the site plan review was one of those things that was one of the few that didn't require public comment. And we also acknowledged that if somebody comes to us with a site plan that conforms to our ordinance, then there's not really much comment to be had for us from them or us. We approve based on ordinance. So I think that was the logic at the time, at least.
Okay, very good. Any other comments? All right. So we'll move on. And so we're ready to move into our new business. So the first item is PSPR 21-03, Malley Construction Contractors Yard Final Site Plan Application. And so I will turn it over to Peter and/or Rodney for introduction and any updates from the staff, and then we'll call on the applicant if they have any updates that they want to offer as well. And then we'll move into our consideration of it.
Well, thank you. You have our report dated February 9th. This is a final site plan for approval for the expansion of the Malley Construction Contractor's Yard. The site plan that you have in your packet, the full site plan is dated February 4th, 2021. As Lisa mentioned earlier, the special use permit has been approved, so this project is ready for final site plan approval. You had previously approved the preliminary site plan for it. The applicant has taken care of the items that were raised during our earlier review. You'll see on the February 4th site plan that the road is no longer proposed to be fenced off. All of those elements have been removed. Instead, there's a gate across the Packard Street frontage of the expansion lot, but the road itself is no longer proposed to be obstructed. We have been continuing to look into the history of Packard Road there, and we found half a right of way so far in the documentation related to the history of the parcels. So we are aware that there's at least half the road right of way, and the legal descriptions that reference that Packard Road right of way make it clear that there isn't the other half of the right of way. We just haven't found the right legal description yet to show that. So at this point, the applicant has, as I said, followed what they said they would do, which was remove the fencing, keep the road open. This is beyond the scope of this final site plan process, but we will be continuing, staff will be continuing to work with Mr. Malley and to see if we can come up with a long-term solution for Packard Road, with the idea of perhaps trying to get it incorporated into our public road network. That area is zoned industrial. From an economic development perspective, paved public roads would be best to make maximum use of that industrial land that's over there. And so that's where we'll be looking at this point to moving ahead. I don't have a timeline for that, as right now we're still kind of gathering information. With regards to the site plan itself, we as you'll note in our report, we found that the site plan is complete. It is ready for your review and action, and the applicant has addressed all the items that were of concern previously. The applicant has added the landscaping elements that were required. As I said, has adjusted the fence location, and the site plan at this point is in compliance with all of our requirements for site plan approval. And so we have included a recommendation at the back of our report for recommending this project for approval tonight without any conditions. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. So who raised their, oh, Jessica, go ahead.
I'm sorry, this is probably something obvious, but I don't understand it. On the fire report or the fire department reports under status, they put fail in red, and yet they're approving. This is true on all of these site plans. Is that just the status at the time that they're using? Or what does that mean?
Because a person asked about that, and I'm looking through my email. Randy Keeler, who does the reports at the fire department, it has something to do again with their system that they use, but it's approved. It's not actually failed. I think what it is until he actually goes out and does the inspection when they're actually constructing, then he goes back to the system, enters it in that it's good, and then that failure item gets to approved. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So as you can see, the applicant has also joined us on this side of the wall. And so I guess I'll ask Mr. Malley if there's anything you'd like to say at the outset, or if you just want to be available for questions.
I am just available for questions.
Okay, very good. So you've heard the introduction, and you've had an opportunity to review the plan. It's basically before us, so it's open for questions and discussion. I gather in addition to eliminating the road closure and what else, the fencing and so on, I guess they've enhanced the screening a little bit. Is that right?
That is correct.
Additional shrubbery or trees?
Right. They extended the landscaping strip along the road frontage to include Packard Road. The preliminary site plan only had the landscaping along Airport Road.
Okay. And then they're also, they do show the sidewalks on both roads, but they're asking for relief, temporary relief based on, we assume based on the fact that it's in an industrial zone primarily.
That is correct, yes.
All right.
Question.
Alex?
This landscaping that's shown, is it screening or part of our landscaping ordinance?
This is it's not a screening per se. It's not as if it was a solid row of evergreen trees or something like that. This is intended to be a landscaping strip along the road rights of way, rather than a barrier to visibility within the site. This area is all industrial, so there's not a requirement to screen it entirely away from sight, as you might if this was abutting a residential property or something like that, residential district.
So is there some, in our landscape ordinance, is there some, landscaping and industrial, in my mind, would be a lot less landscaping than a B5 location. Do we have that type of separation between the two?
There are gradations to it. For example, there's not any requirement for internal landscaping on this site, even though if this was a commercial site, with parking lot and such, there would be landscaping within the parking lot and other elements to that effect. This is only the only requirement here that is governed is along the road rights of way.
Yeah, it just seems excessive to me in an industrial truck yard area for a significant amount of landscaping, and I would hate to deter somebody from developing employment center because we're adding 40,000-50,000 worth of landscape.
Other comments or questions? We can have a motion at any time.
I'll motion to approve the PSPR 2103 final site plan for Malley Construction for the contractor's yard on approximately 8.59 acres of land. Parcel numbers 14-011-30-001-07 and 14-011-040-002-00 on the south side of East Airport Road and east of Packard Street in the southwest quarter of Section 11 and in the L1 Light Industrial Zoning District. Finding that the February 4th, 2021 site plan fully complies with the applicable zoning ordinance requirements for final site plan approval, including sections 14.2P, required site plan information, and 14.2S, standards for site plan approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, so the motion was made by Commissioner Cody, as stated, and was seconded by Commissioner Lapp to approve the site plan. without conditions. So the motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? So I've got two. I don't know who went up first, but I'll call on Mike first and then we'll go to Ryan.
I'd like to suggest that we recommend that we grant the waiver for sidewalk. in the
Yeah, we need to deal with that
property.
in the motion.
Well, it's actually addressed on the plan because the waiver was requested. So if you approve the site plan, the waiver is approved.
But we have to give reason.
That's true. I will.
And because, and I suggest that we say, because it is in a
Yeah.
industrial setting, industrial property.
I support the change.
Okay, so the mover has agreed to a slight modification of the motion, which is to include a statement that the requested relief, temporary relief from sidewalk is granted on the basis that the property is in an industrially zoned district. Is that also okay with the seconder?
Yes.
Okay. And then Ryan's unraised his hand. Was that your, was that
Commissioner Darren covered my, yeah,
Okay.
he covered it.
Very good. Any other discussion? So for all action agenda items, we've been doing a roll call vote. So I'll ask for a roll call vote at this time. And
Lap,
so in this case, it would be preferable if you do unmute yourself so you can, answer yes or no.
Lap,
Yes.
Shingles,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes,
Buckley,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Fuller,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Squatrito,
Yes.
and LaBelle.
Yes.
That motion carries 9-0.
Excellent, thank you. And just so people know, a different order is used every single time. It's like the lottery machines. It always spits out a different set of numbers. So be on your toes. All right. So, Mr. Malley, that's been approved. So good luck with that.
Thank you. We appreciate everything you guys have done for us.
Yeah, thank you. So the next agenda item is PSPR 20-14. This is Grayling Investors. It's the Dunkin' Donuts / Marathon filling station out on Broomfield, right? And this one is, we did the preliminary site plan already. So this is the final site plan application. And so Rodney's bringing those folks or whoever is representing that project across. And then we'll have a brief introduction and then we'll move on to our consideration.
Well, thank you. So you should have our report dated February 9th. This is a final site plan action for a combination of Dunkin' Donuts, drive-through restaurant, a convenience store, and a filling station, Marathon filling station. The special use permit for the filling station was approved in 2019. As you're aware, the change to our new zoning ordinance caused them to need to take care of a rezoning of the land. The land had been split zone between B4 and B5. That now has been adopted. The Board of Trustees adopted that change as the clerk mentioned. So now the property is entirely B5. And again, it is ready for final site plan approval. The applicant has been working with the utility public services department on water and sewer utilities and addressing those details. The applicant is also currently working on finalizing the location of sidewalk improvements. They're shown on the plans, but because the County Road Commission is working at that intersection right now, the exact location of the sidewalks will be determined basically in conjunction with, in cooperation with the road commission and their construction project at the intersection. For us, for final site plan review, we've reviewed the plans and found them to be fully in compliance with the information requirements and the standards for final site plan approval. So you'll see in the last page of our report that we are also recommending this plan be approved without any condition. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, so questions for Rodney before we move to the applicant? So I see Mr. Moore here is the applicant's representative. Anything you'd like to say just at the outset? I assume you'll stand for questions, but if there's anything you'd like to say, we're happy to hear it.
Yes, I guess here for the Sam's Club. I think, Rodney, you have the wrong applicant.
Ah,
I
okay.
entirely apologize. I clicked on the wrong one. You know, I'm actually not seeing the right one. I don't see anybody here from that item. If somebody is here for that item, if they could raise their hand, I will happily move them over. I apologize, Keith, for bringing you over early.
Not a problem.
No, I don't see any of the individuals associated with this project here with us this evening.
Okay. I assume they're not the famous anonymous, so we'll go ahead and let's see who's got their hand up. Jessica.
If they don't have the sidewalks finalized now, do they have to come back with a sidewalk plan then, or how is that approved?
That is something that we can take care of as an administrative action. Adjusting the location of an improvement to deal with a construction related detail is something that the ordinance allows staff to approve as administrative action.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say I think we can proceed. You know, we've reviewed the preliminary and there's been relatively little that they've had to modify, it seems, but it's open. I mean, if people have concerns, then you know, they should certainly make them known. Commissioners, I'm talking about. Any questions or comments from commissioners? I saw Alex first, and then we'll go to Mike.
Yeah, I'm just commenting on back on the landscape thing again. They've provided a very extensive landscape plan here. This plan looks to exceed what the township requirements are. Am I correct, or is that what the township would require for this facility?
The applicant has met our requirements. Whether they've exceeded them or not, I couldn't tell you right offhand. I think there certainly appear to be a large number of shrubs and perennial type plantings on there that are not part of our requirements necessarily. We do have shrub requirements, but this is, you know, it's going to be a very nice project overall.
Yeah.
With regards to landscaping, my suggestion would be, we have a new ordinance, we have new landscaping requirements. I can tell you from working in many communities, they are not onerous. They may be different from what you've had before, which was very little, but they're not onerous. In fact, they're really still on the lighter side compared to many communities of a similar size and character. So my suggestion would be, let's work with these standards as we do with the other elements of the ordinance. And if we find we need to make an adjustment down the road, we certainly can. But overall, this is a very nice looking project, and it is not overly landscaped.
And then Mike.
I just wanted to point out it was nice that they took into consideration an electric car charging station on the northwest corner of the lot, which, you know, we've got it at the Citgo up on Pickard. Now we're branched out down there. And I just think that it's kind of lending us to the future by spreading it out, and I think our encouragement probably helped.
Very good. It's also a very visible corner, a very heavily trafficked corner. So I don't personally find if there's a little bit more greenery there than you might normally see, I don't think that's a bad thing. Certainly if they're willing to do it. Other questions and comments? And once again, we can have a motion at any time. I'm assuming this motion would want to perhaps make reference to the idea that final approval of the location of the sidewalks will be handled by township staff.
It can, as I said, the zoning ordinance already allows us to handle an adjustment like that that comes up during construction as administrative action. So you don't have to, but you're certainly welcome to include that if you'd like.
I was trying to remember whether it also allows the commission to reserve the right to have it come back. I don't actually remember. I don't pretty much I've never done that, but
yeah, you could if you wished. If you wanted to see it, you could do that.
I'll motion to approve the PSPR 20-04 final site plan for Grilling Investors LLC for the construction of the new Dunkin' Donuts convenience store drive-through lane and marathon filling station on parcel number 14-026-20-2001-06 located on approximately 6.94 acres on the southeast corner of the East Broomfield and South Isabella Road intersection in the northwest quarter of Section 26 in the B5 Highway Business Zoning District. Finding that the January 19, 2021 site plan fully complies with the applicable zoning ordinance requirements for the final site plan approval, including sections 14.2.d required site plan information and 14.2.s standards for site plan approval.
is there a second?
Second.
I believe that was that Buckley? Okay. So the motion was made by Commissioner Cody and was seconded by Buckley. You heard it read. I don't know if I'm giving away secrets here, but Commissioner Cody does not have those motions memorized. Township staff kindly creates template motions to represent the various actions that we might take, and they're all present in the packet, and this is in part to standardize our actions, make sure they're legally defensible, and so on and so forth. So any commissioner can, if you have it in front of you, that's what we're referring to. So if anyone wants to get their name in the minutes on a motion, they're welcome to do so. So it's been moved and seconded, so it's open for discussion, and Mike has his hand up, so we'll go to Mike.
I just want to do a clarification on the parcel number. It was stated 14-026-20-201-06, and it's 001-06. Just wanted to clarify.
Okay, very good. We'll make sure we get the parcel number correct. Other comments or questions in discussion of the motion? So seeing none, I will ask for the roll call.
Fuller,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Squattrito,
Yes.
Buckley,
Yes.
Shingles,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
LaBelle,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
and Lap.
Yes.
That motion carries 9-0.
Excellent, thank you. All right. So that one is done. So the next one is the Sam's Club Filling Station Final Site Plan Application. This is PSPR 21-01. It's down at the south end of the parking lot of the Sam's Club. And again, I'll let Rodney and or Peter talk about this briefly, and then Mr. Moore, and then we'll move to deliberation and action.
Thank you. Everybody should have our report, also dated February 9th. This project is a long time coming. The filling station had a special use permit approved back in 2005, but was not constructed at that time. Sam's Club is coming in now to essentially complete the Walmart and Sam's Club development that began back in 2005. Overall, as with the other two, we reviewed the site plan, final site plan, and found that it satisfies all the information requirements for final site plan approval and the standards for final site plan approval. I would like to highlight again, as I did with the preliminary site plan, that this project actually exceeds the requirements to some extent, and that the applicants have agreed to construct not only the sidewalk in front of the filling station portion and the sidewalk in front of the remaining Sam's Club portion, but they are extending the public sidewalk across the Walmart frontage as well, where it was not constructed originally, all the way up to where we have existing sidewalk that the Members First Credit Union put in. And they are also extending a section of private sidewalk into Walmart. Walmart has sidewalk in front of their building, and they have a sidewalk that comes from the front of the building towards the road, across the parking lot on the north side, but it ended, I think it's about 100 feet or so shy of Encore Boulevard. And so as part of this project, they're connecting all that together. So this is a very significant improvement to pedestrian access in this area. And I think a very important one, as we discussed with the applicant very early on. These sidewalks are used regularly. If you're over in that area, although it's a very auto-centric area, lots of cars going in and out, you also see many pedestrians, both because we have a lot of multifamily housing in the area, but also simply because there are many people that live in this area that don't drive, including some that have barrier-free needs, wheelchairs or other needs that make these sidewalks just absolutely essential for them to be able to live independently. So I do want to commend Sam's Club for their decision to take the step and to finish the sidewalk network on the Sam's Club and Walmart property as part of this project. It's going to be a very important benefit for the township. And with that, our recommendation on this plan is also a recommendation of approval without any conditions.
Okay, thank you. So before I open it up to Mr. Moore, any questions for Rodney from commissioners? Okay, Mr. Moore, is there anything you'd like to say by way of just introduction, or do you just want to stand for questions?
I think just mainly here for questions if anybody has any.
Okay. So you've heard the report from township staff, and you've had a chance to review the project. So it is on the floor for discussion, comment, questions, and so on.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve. Approve PSPR 2101 final site plan from Carlson Consulting Engineers for the construction of the new Sam's Club filling station on parcel number 14-001 026-30-001-07, located on approximately 16.8 acres west and north of Encore Drive in the southwest quarter of Section 26 and in the B5 Highway Business Zoning District, finding that the January 26, 2021 site plan fully complies with the applicable zoning ordinance requirements for final site plan approval, including section 14.2.p, required site plan information, and 14.2.s, standards for site plan approval.
Motion was made by Fuller. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Darren. Further discussion? Seeing none, I will ask for the roll call.
Cody,
Yes.
Buckley,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
LaBelle,
Yes.
Shingles,
Yes.
Squattrito,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Lap,
Yes.
and Fuller.
Yes.
That motion carries 9-0.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
congratulations and good luck with the project.
Thanks again.
Thank you. All right. I suspect the next couple items here may be a little bit more involved, but so on item D, we've got PSUP, which is a special use permit application 20-03, and PSPR preliminary site plan application 20-18 for the new Isabella County Jail and Sheriff's Office. So the special use permit for that and the preliminary site plan. Those of you who were here last month recall that we had a presentation on that. Just a presentation. We were shown some stuff, and now they're here with the special use permit and the request and the preliminary site plan. So again, I will have I'll have Rodney give us an introduction, and then we will hear from the applicants, and then we'll
So as you said, we have two applications. They are tie-barred together, a special use permit for a public or institutional building in the agricultural district to be used as a county jail facility in the sheriff's office. And tied to that is a preliminary site plan application for that development. We brought this to you tonight for initial review and comments and questions with the applicant. We're not asking for any action tonight other than your concurrence to go ahead and set a public hearing date for our March regular meeting for the special use permit. You do have a report, special use report dated February the 9th. Gives you background on the process. The county has been looking at a number of sites. They looked at least one other site in Union Township. They have selected this site. They've also certainly made the determination that a new jail facility is necessary. And of course, a jail facility is an important part of providing adequate law enforcement in the community. And so they've identified this as their preferred location for that jail site, and also to provide new offices for the sheriff in his activities. The special use permit is subject to 7 standards that are in section 14.03 of the zoning ordinance. And those are, you'll see those in our report, they're all in the black banners on page 2 and 3, 4 and 5 of our report. We did, you'll see there are more than 7 of them there, and we did have a need to break a couple of the standards, item 2 and item 7, into essentially clauses or separate chunks because they covered multiple topic areas. So I'm certainly happy to discuss our comments. What we found in general is that the proposed project can conform to the special use requirements, these 7 standards, but there is a need for some additional information to verify compliance with several of the standards. Then in our separate report I'm not going to do a lot with the preliminary site plan report. Just note there again that the project is sufficiently complete for your review. The plan is sufficiently complete for a public hearing. There are a few details that are missing from the plan, just as we've seen with other preliminary site plans, that these are similar in terms of missing items of information that could be addressed as part of conditional approval of the preliminary site plan when that time comes. You have the option to, just looking ahead, to approve the preliminary site plan contingent upon the Board of Trustees approving the special use permit, or you can choose to hold off on the site plan component and wait for the Board of Trustees to act and then act on the preliminary site plan. That's something we'll discuss more at the next meeting when in conjunction with the public hearing on the special use permit. But overall, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'd like to make sure to give plenty of time for the applicant to address you tonight.
Yeah, we certainly want to do that. Do you want to say anything about, I mean, to me, the biggest issue I saw was the water. Do you want to say anything about that up front, or do you want to wait?
I think I'll let the applicants address that. They may have some additional comments on that, and maybe I can follow up if needed.
Okay. Any other questions for Rodney before we turn it over to the applicants? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I will turn it over to the applicants to talk to us.
All right, good evening, everybody. Daryl Don with Integrated Architecture. I virtually met everybody about a month ago. I am the Director of Architecture Integrated and the project lead for this one. So with me tonight, I have Rob Conley with Clark Construction, Troy Grunder with Row Engineering providing civil backup, and I know the sheriff's joining us as well from Mexico, maybe somewhere, Sheriff, it looks like. So happy to answer any questions on the, so I'll just speak right up front to the utility information, or the utility question rather. The water connectivity for the project is one that's, it's not yet determined. So it's something that the county is looking at options. I think that the report addressed very clearly which options exist. I don't think there's any debate here what those 2 options are. And that there's just not a final decision yet. We are aware of the township's connectivity, where that connectivity point is, what that would mean to the project to bring water to the site from Union Township's water source, as well as the private water source across the street. So I wish I had an answer for you or more information. We do understand that that's critical information that's needed. It will be needed, will have to be finalized to grant this project approval to proceed. And we do understand that. Just at this time, we don't have a firm direction on that. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have on that issue. I likely won't know any more than what I just stated. Troy can speak to it from a civil engineering standpoint, and then Rob from a constructability standpoint as well.
Okay. I guess I'll just interject before we move on to that. So in terms of what we do tonight, we have to do one thing, which is to determine whether to authorize the public hearing to go forward on March, what is it, 16th, or not. And so we're not doing anything else with the special use other than just determining, oh, is it ready to go before the public for next month? But then we have the option to look at the site, preliminary site plan and actually even go so far as to approve it conditionally. Is that right?
You would not want to take action on the preliminary site plan until you have acted on the special use permit. You
Okay.
can act on the site plan at the same meeting as you would make a recommendation on the special use permit, but
Okay.
the special use permit should come first. in
Well,
that
I
order.
understand. Okay, yeah.
But what you can do tonight, if you wish, is to look at the preliminary site plan and offer any direction or recommendations or suggestions to the applicants related to that plan, layout of, they have proposed screening, they have obviously the layout of the overall site, any of those elements that you see on that preliminary plan,
Yeah.
providing counsel to the applicant on that would certainly, I think, be helpful to them.
Okay, all right. And I think that, typically, we have to decide on, and we're not deciding tonight, but, you have to decide on the special use and then you move on to the plan. On the other hand, though, sometimes the plan informs, your decision on the special use. So they do tend to overlap to some extent. I'm going to suggest that we focus at least first on the special use issue and determine whether we want to, let it go forward for next month or not. But, the applicants are obviously here, so they're basically here to answer our questions. So I'm going to turn unless you guys have anything else you want to say at the outset, then I'm going to turn it over to commissioners to start firing away with their questions. Sounds like that's okay. So I saw Alex had his hand up.
Yes, I was just gonna ask if the preliminary site plan met the preliminary requirements based on our ordinance.
I can address that. As you'll see in our report on the preliminary site plan, which is the second report in your packet, you'll see in there that there's some items of information that are incorrect. There were some errors on the nothing that affects the overall site design. There are details, but nonetheless, there were some errors made in terms of referencing adjacent zoning and revision dates. There was also some missing information that was part of the application packet that they did not provide. We noted had a number of comments related to sidewalks and had a comment about parking requirements that are all preliminary site plan items. So these are details that were not addressed on the plan. They are similar to details we've seen on other site plans, preliminary site plans, where we've allowed them, approved a preliminary site plan subject to taking care of these on the final site plan. They are not anything that would affect the overall site design. And so, in that sense, while it doesn't, the plan does not meet every requirement for preliminary site plan approval, we're comfortable that the plan is sufficiently complete for your review and potentially a conditional approval.
The only reason I ask is, if you push a preliminary into March, final into April, approval into May, you're already a month and a half into construction season before you have approved plans. And, I'm sensitive to that, being in the construction industry, and there's only so many months to do this stuff.
I respect that, but we ultimately, this project will need both preliminary and final site plan approval, and it needs a special use permit approval from the Board of Trustees. So the timing is kind of set by those elements. And of course, and it needs a hearing. So we've talked with the applicant. We've given them some ideas of timeline. I guess what they might call the slow timeline, where you wait on a preliminary site plan approval until after the special use permit is acted upon. We've also talked about a faster timeline where if you chose, you could approve the preliminary site plan contingent on the board's action on the special use permit, which you have done previously. We've done it both ways previously. But ultimately, this project is going to go certainly in April before, at the very least, before it could be approved for a final site plan. That's just by nature of the requirements that apply on this and the hearing requirements and such. Whether it goes beyond that, quite frankly, is actually really governed by the applicant and the quality of their final site plan. If, as we've seen tonight, you've seen plans, 3 of them that all met every requirement. The applicants made a very diligent effort to address all the issues that need to be addressed and to meet the outside agency permit requirements, including our Public Services Department for water and sewer. And it allowed us to provide them with a clean review, which we prefer to do. If the applicants here do a similar thing, address the utilities and get hooked up to the township system, which is really the best solution and the only one that allows the township to fully meet its obligations related to building code, fire suppression, and also emergency response, then this project can move forward very quickly. But it will take the applicant making the decision to address the utilities and to move forward consistent with township requirements and to provide complete site plans similar to the ones you saw tonight for the other projects.
I see Ryan's got his hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the conversation that we're having about the preliminary site plan. I'm just curious as to, I guess, where we stand in terms of the water issue and the connection, whether it's coming from Union or whether it's coming from the tribe. And it seems like a pretty important issue, I guess, to be leaving open while we're considering whether or not recommending to the board approval or denial of a special use permit. And maybe our applicants have a sense of, do you have a sense of timing as to when you will have the information on hand to make a determination as to at least what you're proposing?
We hope certainly by the time when we're back in front of you folks in a month that'll be figured out. All I can say is it's an ongoing consideration of the county. Margaret McAvoy is really leading that effort. They're pursuing all options. They're evaluating both options, and beyond that, I wish I could share more. I don't have anything more than that. I know she'd be happy to. She's in regular correspondence, I know, with the township on this matter. So beyond that, I don't have any firm commitments. I can't share anything more than that tonight. That's all I really know.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
Ryan, if I may just add to that for just a moment.
Sure.
With the reason we are recommending that we go ahead and proceed with a public hearing, even though this water issue, as you said, which is very important, really essential, is not addressed, is because the water issue is, you might call it an internal issue. It's directly associated with our standards for approval, but it does not affect the site design. It does not affect how they handle screening or where the road access is, or even where the building is. It doesn't affect those elements that might change in terms of the overall site layout. And so we felt it was important to go ahead and take this out to the public so you can hear from the public, the neighbors around, and others that might be interested, and get that input as well to make that part of your decision making. I certainly recommend, as we do in our report, that the water issue be resolved before you take an action to recommend this project forward. I would not myself, I would not recommend as a professional that you essentially punt this to the Board of Trustees, because these are the standards these 7 standards are you are under an obligation to confirm that these standards have been met. And so it does need to be addressed before you take action. But I see it as something where this project is sufficiently complete that public input would be a valuable thing to go ahead and proceed with.
So Rodney, can you clarify then? So I'm not necessarily against moving ahead with the public hearing. And I know that the primary goal is to decide whether or not on this particular matter to decide whether or not we intend to move ahead with the public hearing. So are we not talking about taking any action right now on the special use tonight as well, or is that?
You're required to hold a hearing before you can take action on the special use permit. So tonight,
Okay,
the
I'm
only
sorry.
action for tonight.
We're just looking at, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the only action for tonight is really 2. One, review the plan and make any comments that you have to the applicant. And then the main one is to decide whether to authorize a public hearing for the March agenda.
Sure. I did have, for Sheriff Maine, one additional question as it related to the special use. If I can ask that, I guess, while I've got the mic. Under the special use, when we talk about issues of noise, I know we talked about sirens and stuff already. When you do your emergency driving, I'm assuming that you do some emergency driving training and things like that. Is that something it's done on site in the lot, or is that done off site? And if so, are there any concerns with on-site training activities that make use of vehicles or anything like that? Is there any concern with that at all?
Takes a specific parking lot or size to do that kind of driver's training.
Right.
We've been fortunate that CMU the last few years, and they've got instructors as well as we do, but we do a county-wide when we do that, and we do it on some of the parking lots on the south end of Kelly Short Stadium. So we wouldn't be doing any training exterior like that with noise or tires squealing or anything like that at all. No.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
A couple of just brief notes, if I might. There were some really good comments last time we met about some additional screening just due to some headlights and patrol vehicle movements. One item of note was some screening here to the west parcel. We did go ahead and add some evergreen screening along that area for exiting patrol cars, which is happening from this lot up to Remus Road. And then secondary location that provides some screening is here along the Sally Port. So there'll be movements both to and through the Sally Port here. So again, just trying to be mindful of the easterly boundary. And we did go ahead and add some evergreen screening in that location as well. So just I wanted to bring those items up as responses to the last meeting.
Very good, thank you. So Commissioner Darren?
Daryl, while we're talking about the screening over there on the west side, one other concern that I guess I didn't communicate too well, when you're coming from the secure port in the back and you're exiting out the sweep, the sweep curve, does that trajectory, will that be shining lights on the houses that are to the west? Yes, in that area.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can lay a tape on that and just see if that will affect it.
Yep. We'd have to look a little closer in an aerial and perhaps walking the site along this edge here, this wooded line, just to kind of project to see if that might be an impact. We are planning some stormwater detention in this area here, some berming and some evergreen screening that since this plan, we've actually beefed up a little bit here. So we'll take a closer look at that, and that might be an area that we could provide a little bit more screening.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
One other question, excuse me, one
Yeah,
other,
go ahead.
and it's related to the detention pond there. That most likely will be dry most of the time, correct? But what's the water table like over in that area? And could that potentially affect the basement on the house to the west of it?
So we'd have to pull up the soil borings to get an exact, water table elevation out there. I don't have that number off the top of my head. But yes, the plan is for that to be a dry pond. That'll all be sloped towards the outlet. So
It'll be the easiest path for water to leave the area.
correct.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Other questions from commissioners?
Does anyone know if anybody from the county has reached out to the neighbors with this plan?
Sheriff, I don't know if you can answer that. In speaking with Margaret, it sounds like a commissioner had made contact with at least one of the neighbors. I'm not sure about the status of all of them though.
Right, I did talk to Margaret, and I talked to Chairman from the board, and I do know he spoke with one or two of the neighbors in that area already on the corner. We didn't get into any detail of what the conversation was, but he did reach out to and have some conversations with them.
Doug?
Yeah, there is one of the neighbors, I believe, had reached out to me, and I believe he's one of the attendants, their participants listening in. So, I'm sure he's gonna have some comments toward the extended public comment as well as the public hearing next month.
Okay, well, that'll be good. Other questions or comments for the applicants? Rodney, are you looking for a motion to authorize the public hearing?
I think if you would, let's do it as a motion. In our report, under action requested, if you can use that language there to set motion to set a public hearing, use that
Okay.
sentence there.
So I'd entertain a motion if someone is so moved to authorize the public hearing for March 16th on the special use permit. And again,
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Doug LaBelle here. I'll make a motion to set a public hearing for the PSUP 20-03 special use permit application for the new Isabella County Jail and Sheriff's Office to be held during the March 16th, 2021 regular meeting.
I'll second that.
So the motion was by LaBelle, second by Shingles. You heard the motion to authorize the public hearing to be scheduled. For any further discussion from commissioners on the motion? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and ask for a roll call, please.
LaBelle,
Yes.
Lap,
Yes.
Fuller,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Buckley,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Squatrito,
Yes.
and Shingles.
Yes.
That motion carries 9-0.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions on the site plan or anything related to this project right now while we have our folks here with us? I mean, I will say it looks like a pretty carefully thought out piece of work there. We looked at it last month and very preliminarily in your presentation, and it looked pretty thorough. So, but obviously there's a few important details yet to be worked out. So
We'll continue to work with Rodney and his staff and certainly appreciate all the good feedback we've received. So thank you.
good. So last call on questions or comments. Looks like folks are content to see you all next month.
Do we need to do anything with the preliminary site plan today?
Nothing. No, it will only take care of that after the hearing and after you take action on the special use permit.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
it was just
Thanks,
if you had any comments or suggestions at this point was really it.
Okay. And I think most commissioners kind of covered the probably the major concern is the connecting to the water. So whether it's the tribe or Union Township. So, and I think the applicants have addressed that, or are going to at least make sure they've got it addressed by next meeting.
Yep. Yes. Understood.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Daryl.
So then we get to have a smooth segue from jail to coffee. The last item, the last regular business item is PSPR 21-02, which is the Bigby Coffee final site plan application. Again, we looked at the preliminary recently. So they're back, the applicants are back with us. And again, Rodney, brief introduction and any updates you want to offer, and then we'll move to interact with the applicant and we'll have our consideration.
Thank you. Here again, it's a final site plan. You saw the preliminary site plan not too terribly long ago for this project. It is for a modular building, kind of a new design, a new concept for Bigby Coffee, the B cubed concept. The final site plan, you have our report date February 8th. The final site plan has a revision date of January 6th. The applicant has worked diligently to address the water and sewer connectivity details for this project with the Public Services Department. That was the primary outside agency involved here. They're not making any changes to the access to M20 or stormwater issues. Those are all remaining as they are. So they have taken care of those details with Public Services. We reviewed the site plan. We found that it satisfies all the information requirements for a final site plan, and it satisfies the standards for final site plan approval. So we're very happy to be able to recommend this project to you for approval without conditions.
Okay, thank you. So I see we've got some folks from the project here. Anything else you'd like to say before we dive into it?
No, I don't have anything else. I'm happy to answer questions as we go along.
Okay. Anything Mr. Palmer or Ms. Olson would like to say before we begin our discussion?
I'm all set. I'm here to listen right now. So thank you.
Okay, very good. So again, commissioners, you've read the report, you've looked at the plan. The applicants are here, so it's open for comment and discussion. The only question that occurs to me at this point is, are we going to have to modify our zoning ordinance to introduce a new district for cute businesses? Because it's just this adorable little box.
All businesses are cute. They ought to be. Even Mr. Melly's construction yard should be cute. Certainly, what we most want, though, is all of them to be successful, and that's really the key.
Mhm.
So Ryan Buckley has his hand raised.
Yes, Ryan, go ahead.
Well, I feel like I've given an adequate amount of time for one last look at it. I think we had a lot of all my questions were answered at the last meeting, so I'd like to make a motion to approve. Motion to approve the PSPR 21-02 final site plan from the Reels Palmer LLC for the construction of a new Big B Coffee modular building, drive-through lane, and outdoor seating area on parcel number 14-012-04-007-07 located on the north side of East Pickard Road between South Somerton Road and the former Mid-Michigan Community College building at 5805 East Pickard Road in the southeast quarter of Section 12 and in the B7 Retail and Service Highway Business Zoning District, finding that the site plan with a revision date of January 6, 2021 fully complies with the applicable zoning ordinance requirements for the final site plan approval, including sections 14.2.p required site plan information and 14.2.s standards for site plan approval.
I'll second that.
So the motion was made by Buckley, seconded by Lapp to approve the site plan in the manner stated. Any further discussion? If not, then it's time for another roll call.
Darren,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Lapp,
Yes.
Squatrito,
Yes.
Buckley,
Yes.
Shingles,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
LaBelle,
Yes.
and Fuller.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Okay. So congratulations and good luck with your business.
Thank you very much for your time and for your commitment to this for us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you guys. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks. So the next item is that you have on the agenda is the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update. So we had a brief discussion about this last month, and you had a memo from Rodney. I don't know if you have this on here because you have something to update us on, or you want our input on something. So let me know.
Well, I had it on there because I had intended to have a project schedule in your hands for this meeting, and it just didn't quite make it. So we'll have that for your next meeting. At this point, I don't have any other updates other than the project. We're proceeding. We're gathering information at the staff level, and we'll be bringing more material to you for your next meeting.
Okay. And I guess just to maybe try to get Tara up to speed, the township has a Parks and Recreation Master Plan. It's probably 15-ish years old, somewhere in that ballpark. And we need an updated one in order to be eligible for certain types of grant funding and things of that nature. And plus, it just seems like a good practice to update it. And so this was discussed at the township, and the decision was made to have Rodney draft something with input from us. So it's going to be kind of an ongoing process that will be coming back to us as he has things for us to look at and give comments on. So any questions or comments on that at this point from commissioners? Okay, so we'll look forward to an update there at future meetings. And then we have the master plan implementation. So this again, this is more of a direct role for us, which is that, you know, our overall township master plan, which has now been in place for a couple of years, you know, has in it a section of goals and objectives that are to be implemented over a period of time. And we had started a discussion probably 3 or 4 months ago now, I guess, about just looking at that and you know, what do we want to do? How do we want to prioritize? You know, how do we want to proceed? And it kind of is one of those things that we've had some good discussion, but we've also been in this situation, which is, you know, we've gone through a meeting and the question always arises, you know, how much longer does one want to proceed with any given meeting? But you know, we had started in the direction of at least talking about some areas that we wanted to kind of focus on. You know, township staff had provided some information, but that's kind of where we are on that right now. Does anybody have anything to add? Anybody have a particular memory or feel for where we are in that process? You're all conveniently muted. You're leaving me out to dry, which is fine. That's my role. So
Mr. Buckley has his hand raised.
yes, Ryan raised your hand. Excellent.
I do remember we did have some conversation about sidewalks and pathways, and I know that we had those folks included in one of our recent meetings here, and I think we gave them a little bit of feedback. And I don't know if we want to have any kind of, I guess, debrief on that meeting, or if Commissioner Darren feels like he's got enough feedback or direction on that. I know we also talked about potentially getting some, seeing if we could get some information on, I guess, market demand for housing and other, I don't know if it was commercial real estate or if that was included in it or not, but I know that there was a conversation about that, and we thought that maybe there was some access that township staff might have to some data that might help guide us a little bit on that regard. Those were the two issues that I remember sticking out to me.
Yeah. Alex?
Yeah, and I just opened up the master plan, and there's some short-term priorities, you know, adopting a complete street, an inventory of sidewalk and bike lanes. You know, I know there's a project in the queue with the road commission being Lincoln Road from 20 to Broomfield. You know, I've seen those preliminary plans, and those plans do not include a sidewalk or a pathway through that stretch. I don't know what we have or the latitude we have to try to help or encourage or fund, support putting sidewalk down that stretch, because yeah, I don't know when it's coming out, this year, next year, but it sure would be a shame not to have sidewalk put in there when they're redoing that.
Other thoughts?
Well, I guess to Commissioner Fuller's point, what options might we have in terms of endorsing that sort of thing, sidewalks for a project like that. I know we've talked in the past about, access to funds from the township in terms of building sidewalks, but I mean, do we have any course of action we could take to endorse something like that?
So we
Well, I
have
think- I
right
think-
now, through Chuck McGurk's various projects, we have approved plans that include public sidewalks along the west side of Lincoln Road, south from Remus Road, a good distance actually. It does not include. I don't believe the Arboretum Apartments has sidewalks in there because they were developed before our ordinance. But Mr. McGurk's frontage, essentially, he has commitments to do sidewalks. Those commitments are tied to the road commission's activities, and what the road commission will not construct sidewalks, but they are the designs that they're working on will help facilitate that by creating the space for sidewalks to go. Right now, part of the problem is with installing sidewalks there is that the road commission's plans are very preliminary, and so like the case with our Dunkin' Donuts site, where they essentially had to just put the sidewalk on the plan, commit to doing it, but they don't know exactly where it's going to go yet because the road commission's plans have not yet firmed up. We have a similar issue on South Lincoln. The portions of that, well, quite frankly, the Lincoln Road right-of-way is in the West DDA district. And so if sidewalk could be constructed within the existing right-of-way, the West DDA could help fund some of that, where there might be sections that are not part of a development project and are not going to be part of a development project in the near future. But as I said, we really do have to have some more firm plans from the road commission before that can be dealt with. Anyway, but a large chunk of those sidewalks on the west side of Lincoln are already committed to being installed by Mr. McGurk as part of his projects.
Right. I just think the river is a great natural resource to get people down to that, enjoying that, whatever they may, instead of walking down the road. And I know a 3-lane road, the 3-lane road or whatever, how wide the road is, will take up most of the right of way. So easement acquisition would be a challenge.
With the sidewalks that would be going in by Mr. McGurk and the sidewalks that are already in place, does the Sidewalks and Pathways Committee, does Arboretum Apartment have relief or waiver from sidewalks, or were they built before that even took place?
They were built before the ordinance was established, if I recall correctly. So they were not required to install sidewalks as part of that project. With any time we have sidewalks going in, if we have a gap, that's really where the township might be able to be helpful. But we do need to have the other sections installed to then be able to fill in the gap. The Board of Trustees, I will say this, the Board of Trustees has been very consistent in their commitment to sidewalk construction, and the 2021 budget is no different than in the past, that there's money budgeted for various sidewalk projects in the township. And I can only assume that commitment will continue, because it has been a consistent goal of the Board of Trustees to improve that pedestrian connectivity throughout the community. And you've really, it's not, Lincoln certainly is one area, but there are many others. Right here by the Township Hall, we have a need for sidewalks that will connect the Township Hall to the areas around it as well. We have a member of our sidewalk committee who's legally blind and has discussed during our committee meetings the challenges he faces with that, and the value that having those pedestrian connections all through the area that they're important to him. So it's all a prioritization process. We have to look at all the potential needs, and we have to look at where our funding sources, where we have available funding for it. And that's part of the reason why this committee exists, to look at the big picture elements and make suggestions.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, I like what Alex is saying. I think we do need to get ahead of it when we know a project's coming. So I took an action. I will bring it up at next week's meeting and make sure we start talking about it with our prioritizations. So at least we can try and put some action against it with Rodney's help.
Excellent. Other comments or questions at this time? I remember the discussion also that Ryan referenced about housing and about affordable housing, and you know, we had a number of different kind of angles of that people brought up. You gave us some material. It wasn't statistical. It was more like, you know, what is Traverse City doing, or that type of thing. I guess what I'm asking is, where do we stand? Is there relevant data? I guess one of the things, I guess we were thinking that the census might give us some information, but we're still waiting for that data, right?
Yes, we're still waiting for that, and that's what I would recommend, is that at this point we wait for the 2020 census results to come out, because as it comes out, as the full census data becomes available, we'll have some good housing information in there that we can take a look at. Beyond that, there are certainly a number of private sources and potentially public sources for housing data. You know, it can be expensive in some cases to get that, and it can be expensive to evaluate it. But so ultimately, I think the first thing we're going to need to do on the housing side is decide what we feel is important. What is sort of, are there issues that we really can have impact on as part of our master plan implementation? And if so, then what do we need to know to be able to respond? So the data, I think, will ultimately be available through the census and other sources.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that Sidewalks and Pathways is going to, you know, have some discussion and perhaps come up with a list of prioritizations. I don't know if that would come back to us and then go to the board, or would go directly from them to the board, but I think that's good progress. And then certainly when the census comes out, we can have a look at that data and see whether it gives us ideas about directions we want to go with respect to housing. In terms of hands raised, I saw Doug and then I saw Ryan. So we'll go to Doug and then Ryan.
And maybe just a suggestion. I think the city of Mount Pleasant had done a housing study, you know, maybe a couple of years ago, or maybe 3 years ago.
And they did.
It could have been 4. I'm not exactly sure, but is that maybe have any merit to maybe reach out to them to see if, you know, we could have a copy of what theirs is? Do they share that type of stuff?
But it's public information, and it's certainly it may be relevant. You know, obviously we're one larger community, but there are significant differences between the housing issues in the city and the housing issues in the township. But you know, I think always those kinds of reports are worth taking a look at. Just like I would recommend taking a look at the city master plan and some of the ideas that they have there. It's a very different document from ours, but you know, it may have some things that are relevant to consider. So yes, it is public data. I can't recall if it's on their website or not, but if we ask for it, we would be able to get it.
Yeah, more just, you know, additional information. It may have some merit, it may not, but, you know, just to kind of see what their analysis or study had come to find out.
Okay, very good. And then Ryan.
In terms of other issues, I do recall briefly touching on access management as well. And I know that was something that's in the master plan. I don't know, I can't recall beyond that where we kind of stood in terms of potentially looking at adopting an access management plan, but I do know that it's been a little bit of a thorn in our sides over the years, not having something kind of enforced. So I don't know. I guess I would put that just put that on the radar if we're still talking, kind of going through master plan stuff and what might need some action taken.
Yeah, I agree with that. It always seems like when those sorts of things come up, we don't have any enforcement mechanism. It's if they choose to do it, great, but if they've got some reason why they either don't want to or can't, then it just goes by the wayside. Any other comments on this issue? Seeing a hand raised, but it's so we're about to, I see a hand raised in the attendees. We're about to move to public comment, so we'll get to that person at that point. Any comments from commissioners on this issue, the master plan? Any additional comments? All right, so it's good to touch base with that and keep it on our radar, make sure it doesn't get permanently kind of pushed aside. All right, so we'll go ahead and close that back up for another month. Other business, is there any other business that needs to come before us tonight that anyone is aware of? Okay, if not, then we will move on to extended public comment. So this is the portion of the meeting where individuals are invited to address the Planning Commission on any item, whether it was on tonight's agenda or not. We ask you to give us your name and address for the minutes and limit your comments to 5 minutes. Extended public comment, and again, activate your raise hand button to be recognized. I see someone already has. And so this is for public comment on any issue. Extended public comment is open at 8:52.
I've asked, is Shyam or Shiam Morar?
It is Sham.
Sham, okay.
Yes, it's pronounced as Sham. So my name is Sham, and I am with Jennifer, and we are at 3010 South Somerton Road, obviously in Mount Pleasant. And this is the whole issue that I'm talking about is about the jail property that's coming up behind us. So we actually purchased this property about in October, and again, this was new information, not while we were purchasing it, and all of this has happened since, I'd say, in the past 3 or 4 weeks that we are getting more and more information. I actually, after I heard about this on the news in I think it was the Morning Sun, there was a little video clip about this property behind us that was going up, and there's a jail coming in. And I'm not opposed to the idea of a jail, but it's just the whole idea of having purchased a property at market value right here, knowing this is one of the beautiful areas. And now we come to find out that here's where we have this jail coming in, and the whole point of us having a quiet area to be living in is now pretty much, I could almost say, is gone. Now, I know I've looked through the plans, and having talked to Margaret McAvoy, having talked to Jim Horton from the Isabella County, then I've also talked to Doug LaBelle, and today, of course, I talked to also Rodney, as you know. We are kind of getting more and more information. I was not aware of any of this happening, and I just wanted to make sure that our comments are actually recorded in your minutes. Whether you can help me or not, or what we can do about this, it doesn't matter, but I want it recorded, and I want all of you to understand this, that purchasing a property at market value and now finding out that if I try to even sell it, no one's going to want it. That's for sure, for one. Not at market value, at least, I can tell you that. So here is some of my concerns. So considering that that is something that I can't do anything about at this point in time, I also wanted to find out, okay, was anybody contacted? I talked to my neighbors. Nobody has actually contacted any of them regarding this. And they were hearing this the first time themselves. Some of them have lived here for 6 years. The other family that's across the street has lived here for almost 20 years. None of them have ever been contacted by anybody. So I'm confused about the process this was done with and how this all happened. And again, I'm just confused. So that's one of my biggest concerns. Apart from that, looking at the plans and so forth, I understand it's done in a thoughtful process, and the whole process is done well. I see that, but there are still concerns. I know noise, light. I know that Sheriff Maine has made that a point and said, they're going to try to minimize it, keep it low, and everything and so forth. But I still have concerns about that because we are on the corner. And of course, we're going to have that issue. Has there ever been a study done about the traffic happening in this area? No, that's not something that might be there. So I would like to know a little bit more what the traffic impact is going to be once this happens to come up in the back here. Also, the berm that is, cited in the plan. Yes, I know from listening and watching the YouTube, because I didn't attend the last meeting in January, but I did go through that whole YouTube process. There was questions about the berm, but never answered as to how high the berm was and how it's going to cover how the houses, the residents on this end is going to have some sort of, effort to, protection from the lights and so forth. The other thing was also, I believe the company or the gentleman that was involved with this project had said that some commissioner had contacted the owners prior to when they were starting the initial design of the plans. I'd like to know who that commissioner was and who they contacted, who are the people they contacted yet, because apparently my neighbors weren't contacted. So here's some of the things that I wanted to bring to your notice, and so that it gets recorded in your minutes. That's all I have, and I take my comment back here after this. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate it. Are there other public comments that anyone would like to offer? Okay, I'm not seeing any others. So we'll thank we'll thank the public for their comments. Did you get enough information for the minutes? Name and so on? Okay. So we do report who speaks and the general gist of what they spoke about. It's not a verbatim record, but of course these are recorded, so one can go back to the recording if one wants the full comment, but we've heard it and we appreciate it. So if there's no other public comments, we'll go ahead and close the extended public comment at 8:58. And the last item is final board comment. So are there any comments from any board members at this time? Any commissioners? Ryan?
Yeah, I'd just like to take a moment to welcome Commissioner Albrecht to the board and appreciate her rounding out the group and giving us an odd number again. So welcome aboard. Every meeting is just as exciting as the one you just had.
Thank you. Thank you. My head's spinning a little bit, but that's all right.
Yeah. We haven't had any of the marathons for relatively recently, but those come up occasionally too. Long meetings. Ryan, or excuse me, Doug.
Yeah, I just wanted to compliment the township staff, Rodney and Peter, with these site plans and all the stuff that comes in front of you guys, all this due diligence ahead of time. It just makes it so much easier on us. I mean, I can't thank you enough for doing that, because it makes it easy for us to understand. You got kind of the guts of it, the meat that we need to look at, and I appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I agree. It also seems like the preliminary and final process is probably going to, in most cases, cause us to have a lot more complete and ready to approve final plans than we would if we're really seeing them for the first time.
That is the goal, and we're already seeing the benefits, in particular with public services, the water and sewer. That has always been a problem. Not the public service is not a problem, but it's been a delay in getting projects built because it was only getting resolved at the very end. And what we're finding by doing this preliminary final business, they're resolving it in between preliminary and final. So all of these projects that you approved are basically going to go right into building permit and construction in a very short order. Much smoother and a much less contentious process than we had before.
Yeah, just having this full of an agenda, I didn't think it was going to move that quickly, and it did. So I attribute that organization and work prior to the meeting with the applicants to that. So thank you for saving us time.
You're welcome.
And I would also point out Jennifer's role in this, not just in helping the meetings run smoothly, but in those behind the scenes sort of things as well. So thank you. Any other comments from board members, commissioners? Okay, if not, then we're moments away from the fastest. Like I teach online, so I've got like 60 or 70 kids, and they're pretty polite, but as soon as they know I'm done, then the beeps are just like, they all beep out at once. So we're moments away from the fastest beep out of the evening. So we've completed our agenda. So we stand in adjournment until March 16th, and we can look forward to a good and exciting meeting then. So thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Everybody,
care.
Good night.
good night.
Night.